The first contact with the Cowrie species had gone badly. That was the official phrasing, anyway. Unofficially, it was a disaster of cultural misunderstandings, mistranslations, and one unfortunate incident involving a ceremonial blade that humans had mistaken for a decorative table piece. I wasn't supposed to be part of First Contact at all. I was a freelance deep space pilot, hired to transport a mixed delegation of human linguists and xenobiologists to the neutral station Halcyon Reach. The Cowrie's delegation arrived late, their vessel badly damaged by a hyperspace shear that had crippled half their systems. By the time we met them, they were exhausted, paranoid, and on edge. So were we. Negotiations lasted less than 2 hours before something went wrong. A gesture meant as reassurance was interpreted as a threat. Voices were raised. Weapons were drawn. The station's automated defenses locked down every docking arm. In the chaos, one of the Cowrie's delegates, a junior royal, as it turned out, was separated from her people. That was how she ended up on my ship. Her name was Valeth of the Shattered Crest, though she later told me humans could just call her Vale. She stood nearly as tall as I did, with pale iridescent skin that shifted colors depending on her emotional state. Long tendrils of bioluminescent filaments framed her face, dimmed now to a soft blue of exhaustion. She didn't carry a weapon. She didn't shout. She just looked lost. Halcyon Reach was sealed. The Cowrie's ship was impounded for repairs, and Station Command wanted everyone separated until tempers cooled. Since I technically wasn't part of the diplomatic corps, I became the default option for temporary civilian custody. That's how they phrased it. Captain Reyes, the station AI, had said calmly, "You will house Delegate Valeth aboard your vessel for 1 standard cycle. This minimizes interspecies conflict risk." I had wanted to argue. Then I saw the way the Cowrie's guards looked at her when they realized she wasn't going with them. Fear. Not for themselves. For her. So I nodded and brought her aboard. My ship, Wayfarer's Luck, wasn't designed for alien royalty. It was cramped, utilitarian, and smelled faintly of recycled air and old coffee. Valeth moved through it cautiously, fingers brushing bulkheads as if memorizing the space. "You art unarmed?" she asked. "Always," I lied. My sidearm was locked away, but I never traveled truly unarmed. "You're safe here." Her skin shifted, blue fading into a muted silver. "Your people lie with comfort, only when it matters." She tilted her head, considering that. The first few hours were awkward. I gave her the spare cabin, explained how the environmental controls worked, and offered nutrient packs adjusted to Cowrie's biochemistry, courtesy of the station medbay. She barely touched them. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bunk, posture rigid, eyes darting to every shadow. "You don't have to be afraid," I said gently. Her gaze snapped to mine. "I am not afraid of you." "Then what?" "I am afraid of being alone." The words seemed to cost her something. Her filaments dimmed further. "Cowries do not sleep in isolation," she continued. "Not after fracture. Not after separation." "Fracture?" I asked. She gestured vaguely toward the station. "My people. My duty. Torn apart. The mind does not rest when the bond is broken." I hesitated. "You want to talk?" She shook her head. "Talking is not enough." Then came the moment. She stood, stepped closer, and looked at me. "I cannot sleep alone," she repeated. "And you are the only one here." Every survival instinct I had screamed danger. Not because she was threatening, but because I was standing on the edge of a cultural minefield the size of a star. "I don't want to do anything that makes you uncomfortable," I said carefully. Her eyes softened. "Then we are alike." Middle. I didn't sleep much that night. For the record, nothing happened the way human imagination might jump to. There was no touching beyond shared space, no whispered confessions under blankets. We sat. Valith arranged herself on the floor near my bunk, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Her presence radiated warmth, not physical heat, but something deeper, like the quiet comfort of knowing another heartbeat existed nearby. At some point, her breathing slowed. Mine never did. I stare at the ceiling, mind racing with questions. What did this mean to her people? To mine? What line was I crossing just by allowing proximity? When I finally drifted into a light doze, I dreamed of standing in a storm, winds howling, only to feel a steady presence anchoring me in place. I woke to alarms. Red lights flashed. The ship's AI announced calmly, unauthorized approach detected. Multiple vessels. Pirates. Of course. They'd been shadowing the chaos around Halcyon Reach for days, waiting for easy targets. A lone civilian ship with a high-value alien on board? We were irresistible. Valith was awake instantly, eyes blazing bright violet. Fear and fury intertwined. They will take me, she said. Alive. Not happening, I replied, already moving. I ran diagnostics, rerouted power, and spun Wayfarer's luck off the dock just as grappling tethers slammed into our hull. Weapons fire lit the viewport. I'd flown through worse odds, but not with someone else's life depending on me in quite this way. Can you fight? I asked between maneuvers. She hesitated. I am not a warrior. Can you help? Her filaments flared gold. Yes. She placed her hands against the bulkhead, closed her eyes, and hummed, a low, resonant tone that made the ship vibrate. Sensors went wild. What are you doing? I shouted. Listening. The pirates' targeting systems flickered. Their communications spiked with feedback. One by one, their ships veered off course, weapons firing blindly. Valith sagged, collapsing to her knees. I pulled us free, slammed into hyperspace, and didn't stop running until we were deep into uncharted dark. When it was over, she looked at me with something new in her eyes. Trust. You risked yourself, she said softly. For me. That's what humans do. I replied, though my hands were still shaking. Sometimes. She studied me. Then your people are dangerous. I laughed weakly. Yeah. We get that a lot. The cycle passed quickly after that. The station reopened negotiations. The Cowries delegation requested Valith's return, politely, formally, with more respect than before. Before she left, she stood in my cockpit, hands clasped. You did not abandon me when I was vulnerable, she said. Among my people, that creates a bond. I stiffened. What kind of bond? Her skin shimmered, gentle and warm. One that endures distance. She leaned forward, forehead touching mine briefly, a Cowries gesture of profound gratitude. Then she was gone. Ending. Life moved on. Or so I thought. Months passed. Trade routes shifted. Stories spread. Humans earned a reputation among the stars, not just as fierce fighters or reckless explorers, but as something stranger. Pack builders. Bond keepers. When the Cowries formally opened their borders to human envoys, I was surprised to receive an invitation stamped with royal sigils. Personal escort requested. Valith met me on her homeworld, surrounded by crystalline towers and softly glowing skies. She wore ceremonial markings now, status elevated. Yet when she saw me, she smiled the same quiet smile. I still cannot sleep alone, she said, voice lighter this time. But now I know why. I raised an eyebrow. And why is that? Because some storms are survived together, she replied. And the mind remembers who stood beside it. The galaxy learned something important that day. Humans weren't just resilient. We were anchors. And once we chose to stand with someone, once we shared the dark so another could rest, we didn't let go easily. Not ever. The first night I spent on Cowrie's Prime, I understood what Valeth had meant. The planet sang after dark. Not audibly, not in a way human ears could catch, but through subtle vibrations in the ground and the faint shifting of light across the crystalline spires. The Cowries called it the night resonance, a planetary rhythm that aligned their thoughts, their rest, their sense of belonging. Alone, it was overwhelming. Together, it was peace. Valeth did not touch me when we rested in the guest chamber reserved for bonded allies. She didn't need to. Our presence was enough. Two minds sharing the same quiet, two heartbeats anchoring each other against the vastness of space. You changed our projections, she said softly in the dark. We believed humans were chaos incarnate. Unpredictable. Excessively emotional. I smiled faintly. Still true. Yes, she agreed. But we failed to account for one variable. And that is, her bioluminescence warmed the room like distant starlight. When humans choose to stay, they stay. The days that followed confirmed it. Human envoys adapted quickly to Cowrie's customs. They listened. They waited. They guarded delegates through crowded halls without being asked. When misunderstandings arose, humans didn't escalate. They endured, anchored discussions until clarity emerged. Other species noticed. Stories spread again, but this time they changed. Not just humans fight hardest when cornered. Not just humans survive impossible odds. The new stories carried a quieter truth. Humans will sit with you through the long night. They will share the dark so you do not face it alone. Years later, when interstellar crises flared and alliances trembled, Cowrie's ships were always among the first to answer human distress calls. No treaties were quoted. No debts were tallied. It wasn't politics. It was memory. I eventually returned to the stars, back to the wandering life I'd always known. But no matter how far I traveled, no matter how empty the void seemed, I never felt truly alone again. Because somewhere across the galaxy, an alien woman lay down to rest, unafraid of the dark. And she knew that if she ever whispered, "I can't sleep alone tonight," humanity would answer. Not with conquest, not with demands, but with presence. And in a universe defined by cold distances and endless nights, that became the most powerful force of all.